example. So this is a mishmash sort of segment. So we covered chapter 3 of the book, which is research, and chapter 4, the MCAT. We sort of had to put these two together because we wanted to keep it to six segments. So I mentioned sort of my main take-home point about Toronto being the place to sort of really do research if you can as an undergrad. More and more med schools are looking at research as really a must rather than a nice to have. It used to be a nice to have, but having abstracts, having papers is more and more becoming the norm as things get more competitive. So there's a couple of ways to find that nice research experience. Actually, the chapter on research in the book is written by Jahi, who's one of our partners, went to med school with us, and one of the editors on the book as well. He's done a fair bit of research. He actually had a patent as well come out of his research. So he talks about how exactly you go about finding a meaningful research experience, and you definitely need to know what meaning looks like, right? What are you looking to get out of that research experience? Is it a paper? Is it a network? Before you even go in, right? There are a couple of ways, right? There's summer research programs. There's an undergraduate thesis program. There are work study programs. My advice typically tends to be for that first research experience, you really have to go with whoever's going to accept you, right? I had to knock on a whole bunch of doors. I actually started out by doing research through something called the work study program. U of T has it, so I think I see a couple of nods in the audience. And I had to do like over 100 applications, a lot of rejections, and finally got into a lab. And then that morphed into an NSERC summer research program. And it just went from there, right? I ended up doing 2 undergrad thesis projects, got a paper out of one of them, got an abstract out of the other, and then continued to do some research in med school as well. But again, research is super important. Learn how to set realistic goals when you're looking for a research project, because if you're expecting the moon, often it won't happen. The other big topic that we're going to cover within this segment, the MCAT, right? I don't like to go into a lot of detail about the MCAT because really you can't really avoid it. There are only a couple of schools that don't require the MCAT. Most schools require the MCAT. If you're planning to not write the MCAT, pretty dangerous strategy, because you really want to maximize your chances and look at as many schools as possible. In terms of timing. Again, I'm sure the panel have thoughts on whether to take a prep course, not to take a prep course, when exactly to write the MCAT. Strategies for studying really vary depending on your background, depending on your major. If you're a science-based major, some topics may be easier than others. So those are my main thoughts. Samir.
Sure. So I'll speak about research first. So. In terms of, again, just like Manaveen was saying earlier, what your take-home is going to be from the project is really important, right? So, and that partly depends on, what project you pick and at what stage of the project you enter that project, right? So, if you're going to be taking on a project which is in its infancy, the odds of you getting something out of it in 2 or 3 years when you're applying to med school are quite low, right? When you're picking a project which is kind of either towards completion or somewhere halfway there, the odds of you getting something tangible out of it are actually much higher. So that's a consideration which is worthwhile thinking about. In terms of my own personal journey, so I applied, just like Mandy, to at least 100 people in the summer of my first year. And I think I literally basically went to the CSB, or the biology kind of faculty website, looked up all the email addresses for 50 or 60 people, and emailed each one of them saying I'm a first-year student interested in research, and had a one-paragraph kind of spiel for it, and met with probably half a dozen people who sort of got back to me. The majority didn't get back to me, and then out of those, I had a couple of options to pick from, right? And it just so happened to be that first summer was so pivotal in the whole process that it became a second summer with a grant that I had. It became a third-year research year project that I did, and ended up being one of my strong references for medical school, and I think a big part of why I got into medical school, right? So, as much as you want to get something out of research in terms of tangible things, don't underestimate the value of your mentor or your supervisor and kind of what they provide. The second thing, which I thought I didn't really know a whole lot about before doing research, was that there's a lot of options outside of medicine. And as much as we're talking about medicine here, it did kind of open my eyes to other possibilities within the sciences. And actually, helped me learn that I don't want to do graduate school. I don't want to do a PhD. I don't want to do a postdoc and become a researcher, right? I want to do something which is more clinically applicable. So I think it's good to explore that. That's what I get a sense of, what it means to be a full-time researcher through, a typical kind of master's and PhD pathway. The second comment on research is, so I think for a lot of, I think especially kind of high school and first-year students, research tends to kind of, give them this idea that there's like, a bench in a lab and you're working with chemicals and kind of, I don't know, fruit flies and those kinds of things. But the reality is research it's extremely diverse, right? Like there's research which is exactly like that. There's lab work. There's clinical research, which most physicians do is clinical research. There's behavioral research. There's research in policy and public health. And the possibilities are endless. There's research in biophysics and engineering, all relevant to medicine, right? So, if you're thinking of research, don't think necessarily of, a lab bench and if that excites you or not. Think of all the other possibilities of research from, various, facets of medicine as a possibility, and apply to all those various facets because that'll help open your eyes into what else exists outside of, lab bench research, but also give you, hopefully, at some level, some other clinical perspective on research as well. In terms of grants and whatnot, so I think I've definitely seen a lot of people who've turned away opportunities from research just because they were not funded. And while I can appreciate that for some people, being financially kind of sound or competent is important for that summer to kind of get by and be okay. But I think at the same time, don't undervalue volunteer opportunities, right? So my first summer was a pure volunteer effort. I spent 2-3 months with no pay, just volunteering in that lab, and they offered me a grant for the following year and kind of brought me on for another project beyond that. So don't give up volunteer opportunities. Pick something which interests you, which has a good deliverable, where your mentor is someone you can work with, right? Like somebody who is approachable, who's nice to talk to, who's going to give you time and effort to kind of coach you and hopefully be a good reference for you. In terms of the MCAT, so again, the logistics of the MCAT are pretty specific to every school. I agree entirely with Manmeet. Like when you're applying to medical school, I hate it when I see people saying, I'm only applying to schools in Ontario. I'm only applying to schools like in the GTA, and it's not because I have anything against schools in GTA or elsewhere. It's because if your strategy is to go to U of T or some specific school, you gotta always think, am I okay not going to medical school at all versus going to medical school in BC? That's the question you want to answer, right? Sure, your ideal choice might be U of T or MAC or whatever else, but you have to answer the question: am I okay not going to medical school at all versus going to school in the US or in BC or Saskatchewan, whatever the case might be? So when you're applying to medical school, plan to apply as broadly as possible, and the MCAT kind of plays into that part, right? If you're not taking the MCAT, you automatically cut off more than 60% of schools in the US and a few in Canada as well. In terms of taking the MCAT, so I don't think there's a right answer as to when to take it. The options typically are at the end of your second year or at the end of your third year. The end of your third year being pretty much the last time you can take it before you've got to apply to med school. My advice on that specific front is that take it when you feel comfortable and when you're ready, right? So if your plan in first year was that I'm going to spend all of my summer in second year studying for the MCAT, and you think you're ready, by all means go ahead and take it. What I don't think you should do is sort of say, I'm going to give it a shot in second year, see how it goes, so I've got another chance in third year to take it, because that can actually have some consequences for certain schools, right? A lot of schools, not so much in Canada, but in the US, definitely look at cumulative scores. They're going to take averages for your scores from your first try and your second try and sort of see where you're at. So you want to avoid having a bad score with your MCAT. The second thing is in terms of taking a prep course or not. And again, this is not something which has a universal answer. And my take on it, again, is partly based on your personal situation. So, prep courses are not cheap. They're going to run you anywhere from $1,500 to $2,500, right? Which is significant money for some people. But if money is not something which is a huge consideration for you, take the prep course, right? I'm not going to advocate for one prep course over another. There's tons of prep course options out there, and the reality is people master all kinds of prep course options, and even without taking a prep course. But between not taking one and taking a prep course, if finances are not a huge consideration, take the prep course. It's going to add schedule to your month or 2 months. It's going to give you content to read over. You're going to have classmates and friends and colleagues you can kind of share information with and sort of match your timelines with. So that's sort of my take on taking it. Having said that, I know tons of friends, and I think Jai himself actually was one of them who didn't take a prep course and did perfectly fine on the MCAT. So there's options both ways. The downside of not taking one is that you have to be self-motivated. You have to find your own schedule, your own books, and all these things have been done before, but it takes a certain kind of person, a certain mentality, and a certain level of focus, which only you can tell for yourself if you want to do without a course.
That's actually an interesting point. I was just gonna. That's exactly why I took a course, and I mean, was it worthwhile? Very hard to say, because I mean, I skipped most of the classes. Still, I just sort of, you know, I needed a bit of structure, because it's hard actually to stay disciplined in this sort of med school pathway. Right? There's certain programs, like anyone here. I'm sure some folks have heard of MCAT, Health Sci, right? If you're in an environment where everyone's applying to med school, things are different, right? If you're sort of, you know, in U of T, and you know, you're like the people you're doing courses with are sort of like, everyone has their own pathway, and you know, a couple of friends are interested in med school, but they're not really sure, and their grades are sort of, you know, varying. It's hard to sometimes stay focused. So part of my reason for taking it was, you know, just to have a bit of structure, to meet some other people who were actually taking the MCAT that summer, and almost just have people who I would study with, right? So that was part of the reason. Not that the course content is stuff that, you know, you can't just buy the books and study yourself.
My gosh, what else can I add? It's hard to follow up with when you have two really knowledgeable people about this already. But anyway, my take on research is that being at U of T, yes, there's quite, you may have heard a lot about maybe some disadvantages about U of T, but at the same time, U of T is probably one of the largest research institutions in Canada, and so being at U of T perhaps means that you have this geographical advantage. You get to plan, you get to perhaps schedule some opportunities to meet face-to-face with these well-known researchers, and being able to talk to them in person may give you that little bit of advantage when it comes to applying for research positions. You know, it's not just like over the phone interview or just email, but you get to talk to them and basically make an impression. So that's one of the things about being at U of T and with respect to research. The other thing about MCAT, I didn't take any courses, but I did buy a manual of Princeton Reviews or one of the some other reviews on the verbal reasoning part, because that was the part where I was most weak at. So I took a bit more of a targeted approach, because verbal reasoning and the writing aspect was the part where I was most weak at, so I targeted those. And I took the MCAT when I was during the second and third year summer, when the physics, the organic chemistry, the physical chemistries were still fresh in my mind. So I didn't need to, I guess, take extra courses with regards to those. I just need to refresh, or I should just need to make my marks in the verbal reasoning better. That's why I selectively look for resources for particular parts of the MCAT.
I'm just going to actually answer a couple of questions that were posted online. The first question relates to taking summer courses, and the question is that medical schools view summer courses differently compared to academic year courses. And so, you know, the answer for the most part is no, they're not really viewed all that differently. Again, your GPA for most medical schools when you're applying is sort of your CGPA, which applies to summer courses, academic courses, kind of anything in between, right? Where it does make a bit of a difference, again, is going back to that idea of a full course load. If you're taking a course in the summer, it's typically not considered part of a full course load. So that's where it may have a small difference for certain schools. But for the majority of schools, it doesn't really matter if your course is taken in the summer or the academic year. And you know, one thing which you may want to consider doing is, if you're looking at certain prerequisites which you think are going to be challenging during the year because of a full course load, you may want to take a couple of those courses over the summer. So just going back to what I did when I was in the first year, I knew I was going to apply to U.S. medical schools because I knew I had to apply broadly to make sure I had the chances. And I knew English is always a subject which typically is fraught with a lower GPA, and it's hard to get the same grades. And so I took an English course in the summer at U of T, and that worked out fine for me. So that's one way of kind of structuring courses between the summer and the academic year. The second question, again, is also related to the way GPA is calculated for courses which are non-prerequisites, right? So if you look at any medical school's website, they're going to talk about courses they need for them to even consider application to medical school. And typically, it's a combination of first year math, physics, biology courses, maybe an optional English course. And in Canada, there really is no specific prerequisite GPA that schools are looking for. It's your CGPA. The prerequisites are purely just criteria to kind of, pass that little qualifier mark at the start, but it's not really going to decide your GPA or influence your application, anything beyond that. In the US, things are different, right? So in the US, I'd say a good number of schools will actually base your application not just on your CGPA, but also on your pre-medical GPA, that's what they call it. So your pre-medical GPA is sort of a combination of mostly first-year courses, typically English, math, physics, and then organic and organic chemistry, and they actually factor in that GPA along with your overall GPA into your application. So the answer is yes or no, it matters, but it matters more so in the US, and of course it doesn't really matter as much in Canada.
Okay, great. So let's open it up to questions from the audience here. So questions related to research and the MCAT. Any questions? No? Nothing about research? So stuff that we often get, things like, how do you go about applying for your first research experience? Who here has done research or has started on a research project so far? Okay, so there's at least a couple of people. Who has a publication? Okay, so we have a couple of people. Great. Okay, all right. Any other sort of words of wisdom on these topics?
So one of the things that is that even if you haven't published those research, even if you have just submitted them to journals, put that on your application because it does count towards something like you put in the effort, you submit it to journals. And you don't necessarily have to go in the traditional sense of coming up with the results. You can write review articles, and basically write review articles, and they count towards publications as well.
And just in terms of going back to research, so there's a few different ways you can get involved in research. And we talked about a few of those earlier. I just want to kind of re-emphasize those ideas. So the first one again is volunteer effort, right? So it doesn't really have to be a kind of well-accredited course or internship or enter a grant. Research is research, period. It's good to have a grant, sure, but what matters more is the amount of time you spend on that research and what the outcomes have been. And again, sometimes publications matter more than others, but for the most part, it really is the amount of work you've done and how much time you've put. And really, the reason why research is important is because it shows for the application committee or the interview committee that you're actually someone who's put in time and effort into one topic or someone who has a focus, right? So as long as you've put in the time and effort into that project, you've got a good reference letter, you've got things to talk about, that'll basically do for research. But don't be shy to email as many people as you can. It's okay to have multiple offers and turn people down, as opposed to having no offers or very specific offers. I think that's kind of it essentially from research.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is research doesn't have to be local, right? Jai actually, so one of the creditors, Jai actually did a lot of research internationally, right? So I think he did some stuff in the U.S. and there's lots of programs you can go to. You can apply to many of the American universities, even some of the universities in the UK or Australia will take foreign research students, and that's a nice way to combine your summer with a bit of fun on the side, but also spending time in the lab doing research and getting to see a place at the same time. So there's neat ways to work different things into your summer. The other piece with the MCAT is again, you have to do what's right for you, but if you're going to spend 2 full summers studying for the MCAT, that's a big trade-off in terms of what else you could be doing with your application, right? All the time that you spend studying for that MCAT, there's an opportunity cost to that. So my strategy, and again, I can only speak for myself, was you have to kind of work backwards. You have to strategize as to where you want to go. And I knew I wanted to go to a Canadian school, right? So not super specific, because you can't just say U of T like Samir said, but I wanted to keep it within Canada. And most of the Canadian schools view the MCAT qualitatively, right? You sort of have to get a certain cutoff. But if you, except for maybe certain segments of the MCAT, different schools are a bit different. But for the most part, getting a perfect score on certain segments is not going to necessarily give you that much of an advantage. The American schools are different, right? So my whole strategy with the MCAT was to kind of just do just enough and not really spend any extra time. overstudying for it, right? And it's a bit of a dangerous strategy. But the summer that I did my MCAT, I also did research and I also did a summer abroad program. So it was, I really did, and I did really do an amazing MCAT, but it was enough to get into a couple of schools. So it met the criteria for most schools, essentially. Any last questions? Research MCAT? Yes.
I'm Trisha. I'm in fourth year kinesiology at UT. So I'm looking into getting one of my projects published, but I'm having trouble differentiating, I wouldn't say the value of different journals, but I feel like there's a lot of predator-type journals coming up, and mostly undergraduate journals. Like, I'm not getting into the Lancet, I could admit that. But do admissions officers look at the quality of the research, if you're the first name written under the research, the impact score of the journal, like what kind of things do they look at?
So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question. So obviously, I think ideally you want to be published in a journal which has a high impact factor, it's well recognized, it's peer reviewed, and so on and so forth. But I think in terms of the incremental value of publishing in a higher journal, there's value, but it's not significant value, right? So as long as your journal is peer reviewed, it's something which you've kind of relatively heard about in your field, that's probably going to suffice. The reality is, most of these situations are not situations where you have a lot of control over, right? So traditionally speaking, and just for people who are not so familiar with research journals and stuff, so when you have a paper ready for publication in a specific field, let's say if it's cardiology or emergency medicine, you typically, based on the quality of your paper that you think, will apply to submit your paper to the highest ranked journal, right? Which maybe they'll answer in a certain field, maybe a different journal in a certain field. And then you kind of go through this, top-down approach where if you get rejected from the top journal, you move on to the next one on the list and sort of keep going, right? And the answer really is you keep going until you get something published, right? Because it's not like you're trying to pick and choose between journals. You go based on just the impact factor, other metrics out there. So it's not really something you can control. But I think even having an article published in a lower tier journal has a lot of value. Because, especially coming from someone who's an undergrad, we're not really looking for a huge amount of, value out of that research. We want to see you're dedicated, you're committed, and any publication will kind of confirm those things. For sure, if you're published in the Lancet or Nature, or, a big journal, it's going to raise a couple of eyebrows and really impress people, but it's certainly not something which is, really expected of you or frowned upon if you haven't published in a big journal.
It's an interesting question, right? Because we live in a time of fake news, right? It's hard to actually differentiate what's who the authorities are on different topics out there. So and this is a struggle that is it's a huge struggle in science. There's lots of open source journals, online journals, dubious quality, and the truth is there are journals that you can pay and get a publication and really give you complete. Your paper can really, it can really be no more than sort of an undergrad sort of writing up a paper without a lot of peer review, and that can get published as well. So it is hard on the admissions committee side to sort of sit and sort of evaluate if this person has a journal they've never heard of, and it sort of depends on the reviewer. Some reviewers may not know if the person benefited doubt, in which case people get away with stuff. And some reviewers really don't take a lot of stock outside of the journals that they know are more legit.
And just to kind of add to that piece earlier, so if you look at the person on the other side of the table, so the reviewer of your application, it's typically somebody who's a med student or a faculty member, right? And they've got expertise in one or maybe two fields, right? So what may be a high impact factor journal in one field, I may have never heard of that because I'm not in that field. And so it's very difficult for an individual to sort of say that, yes, this journal is a high quality journal or not. And I can guarantee you most people aren't spending time Googling journals just sort of see what their impact factor is, right? So I wouldn't worry about that too much. The bottom line is, yes, if you got a great publication in a big journal, it's going to impress people. If it's a journal which people haven't heard about, that's fine too.
Any other questions? Research of the MCAT? Yeah. Okay.
For self-study for the MCAT, do you have any recommendations for textbooks or past exams where you how to use it to study?
Sure. So recommendations on textbooks for self-studying for the MCAT.
Ooh, I have to be careful here and not state any particular companies, but I mean, most of the stuff that's out there, like past exams or practice, anything that allows you to practice, I think they're pretty great. You know, I wouldn't necessarily have like one or two. I don't know. Is there any one?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you've sort of, you know, you can look at a couple of major companies putting out resources out there. You know, certainly, like I've looked at all the materials, and they all, you know, it depends on your studying style. Some of the books are longer because they're for folks who want to know everything, whereas there are people who, you know, just want to know the main basics and then go start doing exams sooner. So you have to decide. Look at a couple of things. Pick one that's right for you. I don't have a particular list.
Just to kind of add to that, so the first thing with prep courses is that you'll find that most prep courses are actually quite different. You're not going to find a lot of prep courses with the exact same strategy or the schedule. You'll find some are shorter in length and some are longer. And so you want to sort of get a sense of, you know, what your timeline is, how much time you think you need to study for the MCAT, and pick prep courses based on that. Virtually all of them do a good job of giving you enough prep for the MCAT. The second thing is in terms of past exams, so for sure a lot of the prep companies will provide you with past exams, either they're like official past exams or ones kind of manufactured by them for the students, but also there's official exams available on the MCAT website, the official, I think it's the AMC, or not sure what the organization is, but they have tons of exams you can buy and purchase just to kind of practice, and they're exactly in the format that the MCAT's going to be in. They're simulated, they're timed, they give you feedback, so on and so forth. So there's tons of resources for getting past exams. In terms of prep companies, they're all fair game. Just get a sense of what the differences are both in cost and timing and what resources they give, and make a choice based on that.
Okay, we can do one more question. I think I saw one more hand go up back there. Yeah, right there. Speaking up a bit.
Sorry. So I had a question about the publication. If you did not have the paper published by technical professional presentation, some sort of project, your project video, not the book, that's not the publication.
So I'll just answer your question in the meantime, right? So again, going back to how publications are reviewed, I'll say, I mean, most application review committees and algorithms typically tend to sort of say, does this person have research experience or not? They may have an additional kind of factor saying, have they published or not? You know, very rarely will I ever sort of see situations where it says, does this person have the first author publication or not, right? So you have to have research experience, whether it's a publication or not. A publication is worth quite a bit, but it's sort of not the end-all be-all. So I wouldn't say it matters a whole lot if you're first author or second author or third author or whatever it is, right? I had 0 publications when I applied. So the people without publications say the vast majority of med school now actually doesn't really even have a publication. It's a changing trend, but for sure it's not a requirement. And I think even if you have a second author, third author publication, that's a great job.
Okay, so we're going to do one more question. I think we have a high school student who's going to ask a question there.
I was just gonna ask, my name's David. I was just gonna ask if you co-author with someone on a publication, does that make a difference? And if it's like a peer that you co-author with compared to a professor, and like also the reputation of the professor, does that impact the like how much they would consider that publication?
Yeah, I mean, I think going to Samir's point, sort of incremental value, right? Like, you know, is it better to sort of, you know, have a more famous author? For sure, but it's hard because people have such varying backgrounds for people to really know, you know, the quality of author sometimes. So it's much better to get something with a co-author than to not have a publication, right? So don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just get something and then move on to other components of the application, because there's so many, the breadth of stuff that you have to sort of accomplish sometimes almost goes against, you know, sort of how sometimes we think, which is to sort of achieve excellence in something. Okay, so we're going to move on in the interest of time. So I know we have a couple more questions, but maybe we can, so we'll be around at the end as well to take questions, and, you know, we'll leave our contact information outside, so if people want to get in touch, that's another way as well. So the next part, so we've covered the building blocks, right? We've covered academics, right, the GPA, and we've covered the MCAT, right? So that's how med schools get a sense of your academic aptitude, right? The GPA, the MCAT, those are the two big things. Research is partly academic ability as well, but a lot of it has to do with teamwork, ability to communicate, to critically analyze. So that's why we put that sort of in these earlier segments as well. And I consider research to be a core building block as well. Really, if you're at a school like Toronto, you want to get some research experience in. The next piece is the next level, right? How do you sort of demonstrate that you're a team player? So we're going to talk about extracurriculars, which is chapter 5 of the book, and volunteering, chapter 2 of the book. So again, just to kind of give you my main thoughts on that. Volunteering, I'll actually leave it to Henry since he wrote one of the pieces on volunteering in the book. But extracurriculars, so you want to think again, what are you going to gain from this extracurricular experience, right? It's really tempting to sign up for every single thing, but you want to think and it's completely fine to sign up for clubs to just meet people. But see if that experience, that involvement is going to actually give you a skill set that you lack, or a skill set that the med schools are lacking, that are looking for. Right. So the book talks about something called the CAMEDS roles. That's how medical students and physicians and residents are evaluated. Right. And more they're looking for those attributes. In the medical school application process as well. There's 7 or 8 roles, and you can sort of see, you want to make sure that your extracurriculars actually demonstrate those skills. I mean, for me, and this is sort of kind of my own take, right? I again initially signed up for a whole bunch of things, and then really kind of shied away from that, like almost stopped getting involved, because I really started becoming more selective. Because my time became super important, right? I just did not have time between research that was taking up a lot of time and continuing to keep up my grades to be involved in a whole bunch of clubs. So I really started liking, experiences that would give me, the ability to demonstrate leadership skills. So that was the metric that I was using to select experiences in undergrad. And if the kind of opportunity that you're looking for is not out there, go create that opportunity, right? It doesn't have to be like a campus club. It could be a community organization. It could be a company that you're running, a small business. It could be, a religious organization. It can be anything. You just want to demonstrate the skills the schools are looking for and the skills that you lack. So that's where I see sort of that whole process of extracurriculars, volunteering, and paid work falls into the same category, right? It sort of falls into that category. When I say extracurriculars, it can be paid, unpaid, not limited to volunteering in a hospital setting. I'm sure that will sort of come up at some point, whether you have to volunteer or not. But really, everything outside of the classroom.
Okay, with regards to the CAMED role, I must say understanding more about the CAMED role is probably one of the main contributing factors that allowed my application to really stand out. Whereas in the first 2 times when I applied for medical school, I didn't really know about them. The 3rd time when I knew about it, I could really tailor my application to the CAMED role. So a little bit about what CAMED role basically is. I mean, back in the 1990s when the physicians and the society...
So it's page 66 of the book for those of you that have a copy, because you may not know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But back then, the Ontario Society and the physicians, the doctors, they didn't really have a very good relationship, and that's when it led to a lot of job actions, doctors going on strikes, and then so at the end of all this, the society actually didn't really look too fondly on the actions that the doctors took. So. And at the end of all this, the doctors sat down and they sort of they asked for input from various people in society about what are we missing, what does society expect of doctors, and so that's how they came up with these CAMED rules. They're attributes that the society wants to look. They want doctors to have, for example, they want doctors to be good communicators. They want them to be good leaders. Scholars, and all these different things. And so that's how it came about. And why is this important in terms of the application to medical school? Well, coming from because I was one of the sort of the file reviewers and interviewers, if you see the marking scheme, this isn't some sort of like secret or anything. If you look on the application guide, the U of T actually puts out there, that's how we evaluate you. So, for example, we have a column that says communicator, and based on your application, we give you a score based on how have you demonstrated that you're a good communicator. We look at your application, and then we give you a score on how have you demonstrated you're a good scholar. Okay, so that's how we give you. That's how we give you a score, and so knowing that, I was able to sort of tailor my application to sort of make these points stand out. If I went, for example, I did some volunteering at hospitals. How have I demonstrated that I was a good communicator? Perhaps I was interacting with different patients in different ways. I interacted with other people who have, I interacted with other volunteers. I interacted with other, perhaps, people who organize these volunteering events. So that's how I sort of highlight my application to I guess, let the file reviewer, you have to make it easy for them to sort of give you a good score. So that's why I think knowing more about the CAT role really can make your application stand out a lot more.
So in terms of volunteering, extracurriculars, and how that kind of relates to medical school or the application phase, if you think of, again, from speaking from the application reviewer or the interviewer's mindset, what I'm looking for again is not so much like where have you volunteered or what experience you have. For me, it's the values and the core principles, right? So I'm looking for somebody who is a professional, just like how you were saying, someone who's a good communicator, who's a good manager, good at teamwork. A lot of these facets were kind of embodied by the CANMET's principles, right? And so when you pick an initiative, whether it's volunteering or a certain extracurricular activity, you've got to ask yourself, what part of my application so far, or my resume or CV so far, have I not really kind of tailored to communication or to teamwork or to managerial skills? And then pick the opportunity based on that, right? The reason why traditional opportunities like volunteering at hospitals and working abroad are so popular is because they tend to kind of exemplify a lot of these core skills quite easily, and they're well recognized to be kind of easy way of showing those skills. But it doesn't mean there's no other opportunities or nothing else kind of works in substitution. You can pick whatever you want. Just make sure when you're picking that opportunity, you have a good sense of what quality of yours you want to explore and identify in your application going forward. The second thing, which is kind of worthwhile considering, is think of every opportunity, whether it's volunteer or not, as a way to explore multiple things, right? So volunteering in a hospital can be not just showing commitment and dedication and hard work and professionalism, it can also show your interest in a certain clinical specialty and something beyond that, right? So trying to use these opportunities to kind of maximize what you can get out of it, because the reality is you're not going to have enough time when you've got to show everyone everything, so you got to pick and choose certain things, trying to highlight specific interests of yours. And the last thing I'll say is don't underestimate, again, the value of spending some time shadowing a physician or a clinician that you think you want to emulate or kind of embody down the road. I've talked to a number of undergrads and high school kids who tell me they want to be a physician, but when I hear their kind of vision of what it means to be a physician, it's totally not something physicians do, right? So you want to get a good sense of what you want to do and see somebody do that in action before you sort of say, that's what I want to do down the road. Thanks.
So one more thing to add before we go to questions. So who here is doing part-time work, paid work? So a couple of folks, right? And this is a question I often face, right? Should I, especially if you're doing a job, from sort of before your high school job. I have a friend who was a manager at McDonald's, and he worked up the ranks, right? And sort of, that's a significant leadership responsibility. The question is, do you want to continue that, right? And this is, again, an individual decision, but you sort of at some point have to decide what the trade-off is, right? If you're doing a job, like if you're working 20 hours a week, it's really hard to put together a competitive medical school application. So, make sure you explore all the other channels for getting that money, right? So make sure you're maxing out if you qualify for any provincial assistance, right? From the province that you're from. Often if you're working, this actually it's counterintuitive, but it counts against you. So there's almost a disincentive to work, which is, it's really strange that the system's set up that way, I find. And the other piece is, you know, there's lots of grants, there's lots of scholarships out there that people just don't know about. I got a lot of things funded just through scholarships. That whole summer abroad program that I mentioned, I got to sort of go to Hong Kong for 5 weeks, and I think it was the third year of undergrad, completely paid for. Got academic credit for it, and really it was just because I applied for funding. And knowing how to write these applications and putting yourself out there for a whole bunch of things is really important. So you don't have to feel that need to keep working. So let's go to questions. Any questions on extracurriculars, types of things you're doing? Yeah, go ahead.
How much value is given to extracurriculars that you did in high school compared to what you do undergrad?
Sure, so my take on it is, you know, when I'm looking at your application when you're in 4th year of undergrad or 3rd year of undergrad, I'm looking at the most recent view, right? And so if you have to highlight to me things you've done in high school, it clearly shows to me that you've not spent quality time doing those things in undergrad, right? So you really shouldn't have to spend a lot of time highlighting your achievements from high school if you've done a good job in undergrad. So when I see that, it typically for me is a bit of a yellow flag as to why this person's highlighting high school achievements, you know, 3 or 4 years down the road. It typically means they just haven't done enough work in those, you know, 3 or 4 years before the application. It's different, fine, for example, if you have a, you know, a very significant accomplishment, like you were an Olympic athlete, something of that sort in high school, by all means, it's not something to be shy about. But if you're, you know, talking with high school committees and high school kind of volunteer experiences, it clearly shows that there's a lack of the same in undergrad, which to me is a bit of a yellow flag.
Any other questions? Do you want to speak to that? No. Any other questions on? Yep, go ahead.
So is the number of extracurricular activities you're involved in a really important factor?
That's a good point, right? That always comes up because so when you apply, at least in Ontario, there's something called OMSAS, Ontario Medical School Application Service. That's the service through which you apply. You do something called an autobiographical sketch, which is a line-by-line item of each thing that you're applying for. The answer to that is, you know, you need some quantity, but quality is really more important, right? So you don't want to have like, you know, it's a 48-item list. If you only have like 10 or 12 items, that's gonna stand out, right? But you don't have to have 48 items, right? I think I had like 32, 33. It really is the quality that matters. I'll be on a certain point. And you have to be able to seek out experiences that you can talk about in your essays, that you can talk about in your interviews, and that is really where the extracurriculars come in. Because you're not going to be an interesting candidate if you haven't done anything, right? And when we get to into the interview section, you really have to put yourself out there to be memorable. Because if all you've done is sort of, you have the grades, and there's nothing wrong in that, because it's better to have the grades and then spend more, and you know, if you have the right grades, you can always give yourself a year or two to travel, to just go work and get those extra experiences that you can talk about and reflect about. It's easier than, you know, the other way when you don't have the grades, you have all these awesome experiences, but you're still not going to be able to get in, right? So that's why the quality really matters more when doing it than the quantity.
Yeah, so quality does, I guess, matters a lot too. I mean, you can imagine each of the file reviewers get about 20 files to look at. And there's a particular page where we see all of your extracurricular activities that you've inputted into OMSAS. When I see that, by the time you get to around like, some people have like 20 items in there, and I'm not going to memorize all 20 things that you've done. When I compare one file to another, if you have so many in there, I'm probably just going to pick like 1 or 2 where you've spent the most amount of time, where you actually wrote something significant about it. So by the time you have like more, say more than 5 or 6, I sometimes start zoning out as to like the specifics of each one of them. So you know what, quality does matter a lot more than.
So I totally agree with that point, because the one thing that I really sort of irks me when I see is member of a certain club, and member really means nothing, right? You can sort of have signed up on day 1 and done nothing. So then you know that person's just putting stuff for the sake of putting stuff. So it can actually count against you, because when you're in this end, and I mean, I've seen over 1,000 applications, not necessarily from the med school point of view, but people sort of sending us their profiles, because we do a lot of work with this. And really, you have to sort of be selective with what you're actually putting out there, because whatever you write, people are going to judge you for that, right?
The only thing I'm going to add on is, in terms of when you describe your activity, that really has to reflect the amount of time you spent on the activity, right? So if you're going to have 2 paragraphs for activity which you spent a week on or 2 weeks on, and 1 for something you spent a year on, that's again really inappropriate. So you want to try and again kind of frame your application based on your experiences, and avoid getting into that this trap where you just put in everything you could possibly think of, where the person who's reading it just sort of says like, this is very redundant from one item to another, just because you can sort of do that.
And the other piece I'm going to add, and then maybe we'll do like one more question on this segment, is there's a big difference with sort of people who have the resources to go out and get some of these experiences, right? And it's definitely not a level playing field. So I think we talk about this many times, even in the book. On the first day of med school, we had people, we had one of the class ask us, who here has at least one parent in medical school, right? And that was over half the class. And that even today is, I don't want to say it's exactly half, but many people who are in medical school, or who have made it to that step, have family or have close friends or have role models and mentors who've made it to that step of the journey, which also means that they've had the financial access to go out and get some of these experiences, right? So you certainly don't have to do that, right? You certainly don't, the one that always comes up is, do I need to go do this fancy trip to Africa to go save the children or something like that, right? And you certainly don't, right? And more schools are becoming cognizant of that, and you can go out and get a good, meaningful experience, right next door, right? There's a food bank right here. So obviously, if you have the capacity, and you can go out and do it, in some of those settings, it may make sense. But having said that, again, this is the other thing where if you sort of know somebody has had all that access, and they're just putting that as a line item, and really they went to something and really was just a party, that can also count against them, right? So the quality again matters. Any other questions on this topic of what else you should be doing outside of the classroom? No? Okay, so the only other thing I'm going to sort of just point out, this goes to Samir's point at the start. So again, page 66 was Henry's point about the CanMed's roles. Definitely make yourself familiar with these roles. Page 44 and 45, those go to the point. There are a couple of references there. There are 2 really good books. These are free books. The Canadian Medical Association puts them out there. That's actually the chapter that I wrote about leadership. I found those books amazing. I only found out about them when I was in med school, but I think every pre-med would benefit from reading them. They're in the Lessons Learned series, Lessons of Canadian Physician Leaders. They profile about 20 or 30 Canadian physician leaders, and it's really interesting because sometimes you don't have access to these people, right? And there are folks out there who, their parent might be the dad of might be the CEO of a hospital, and they've, your entire friend circle would be, people who are opinion leaders in the field, and not many of us have access to that, right? So books are a great way, podcasts are a great way to sort of just, you always can get into the mind of some of these people and see what led them to key decisions in their life. So I found these stories really inspirational, and it also gives you a sense of the variety of careers in medicine, right? That's going to be the last segment that we get to in a bit on what happens after medical school, right? Because not every doc ends up practicing medicine full time, or is a clinician full time. They may wear research hats, teaching hats, and you get to see what people have actually done with their MDs.